Good evening, everyone. We will begin the Administration and Finance Committee. Roll call, please.
We don't have a quorum. Just K to 9.
And we got it. We got it. K to 9. And Lon, we got it.
Let's go.
Holly, the charger is here if you'd like the phone. The charger, phone charger.
Ready? Dr. Bopey? Here. Dr. Bopey is present. Ms. Castile? Ms. Castile is not present. Dr. Davis? Dr. Davis is not present. Ms. Ellis? Ms. Ellis is not present. Here she is. Mr. Garvey? Mr. Garvey is not present. Ms. Holloway? Here. Ms. Holloway is present. Ms. Mellarine? Mr. Mellarine is not present. Mr. Morris? Mr. Morris is present. Mr. Orange Jones? Mr. Orange Jones is not present. Mr. Rock? Mr. Rock is not present. Ms. Gauthier? Ms. Gauthier is not present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. If you don't mind, we want to move Mr. Morris. How do we do this? Mr. Morris wants to move what number 50?
5.8.
5.8.
5.8 out of order.
We want to take 5.8 out of order. Any objection? No objection. 5.8. Mr. Morris.
I'm sorry, we need a motion to take it out.
Motion, Mr. Morris, seconded by Dr. Davis.
Okay, on page 162, item 5.8, consideration of an update reporting on Louisiana Department of Education progress toward meeting key performance indicators for ESSER investments. Recommendation is to receive the report.
Receive. Dr. Brown?
Do we need a
Motion. Dr. Davis, and seconded by Mr. Morris.
Okay, this is just an update report. Ms. Danielle Mitchell will provide the information.
Good night. I was about to say afternoon, I think it's evening. Good night, everyone. Danielle Mitchell, Louisiana Department of Education. This is just an update on a lot of information that we've previously reported. We will have a couple of updates, but just on our ESSER investments and spending. As you all know, the state received about $4 billion in ESSER funds, and those funds, ESSER 1, 2, and 3, go through September 30th of 2024. And as you can see here, this is the current spend down as of October 4th. Actually, this has increased in that time, and so for ESSER 1, it's closer to about 97% at this point. Expended our ESSER 2 about 44%, and then our ESSER 3 about 18%. For our ESSER 1, that period of availability ended September 30th, just a few days ago. We are fully confident in being able to fully expend those funds. The remaining amount is largely sitting with our LEAs, and so we are working with them to make sure that they are submitting their reimbursements for those funds that they invested, and hope to have zero funds left on the table for our ESSER 1 dollars. Then we're going to go into each priority to highlight some of the key proposed priority work. Some of the data is not available until later this fall, so we will only focus on looking at some of the initiatives where we have updated data. And then we will walk through an overview or a model of analyzing our academic return on investment. So for our career, college, and service readiness, our ACT, IGPs, redesign, and student engagement and attendance. Our ACT and IGP, or graduation rate, we'll present that later. The data is not available yet, but we'll look at our redesign and student engagement. For our redesigned high schools, we actually have 9 that are currently opened and operating this school year. We hope to have 10 total, so to add 1 more next year. And just saying that we will also analyze the 9th graders that go through those 9th grade academies to see how they are progressing academically. For our engagement and attendance, There are 4 indicators that we're looking at. First is the average daily attendance. The national standard set by USDE is 95%. So that is our target. As you can see, our current state from 21-22 was 93.5%. And we are working on various aspects with our STAR task force, as well as providing professional development and streamlining our data reporting. That will also correlate to some of our truancy information that you see here. But second, you see the chronic absenteeism has improved, and our goal is 15.3% by 24-25. Out of school suspension, again, what you see here is a goal of 5.9%. As you can see, we actually exceeded that goal last year. So this is an opportunity and an example of how our team utilizes data to really ensure that we are reviewing and setting targets that are meaningful. So this is one example of where our team would go back and look at all of the data, look at all of the analysis, and likely change that target to be more ambitious. And then, of course, our truancy data, where 28.1% came from was that this was the lowest Louisiana has been in the last 5 years. So we do believe that it's attainable. But as you can see, this is for 3 years out. And so it's something that we are working on with our school systems to achieve, making sure that our students are in school learning. For the next priority, we have 3 big bodies of work: the expanded high-quality early childhood seats, new school choice pandemic funding, and student well-being. We will look at the early childhood seats. We want to definitely celebrate the increase in the percent of the birth through 2-year-olds who are accessing those high-quality seats. We've remained steady for the 3-year-olds. But also what we know is the Early Childhood Commission has set a goal of 66% in 10 years. So we are working towards that. We know that the increased rates widen that eligibility. And so we believe that with that, we also need to ensure that more providers are available to provide those seats to those eligible families. The next indicator in this priority is around our well-being and behavioral health. For the Medicaid reimbursement rate, it is dependent on what's called the RMTS, or the Random Moment Time Study, which basically measures the allowability activity that an individual is doing at the time that they complete a survey. There were 2 prongs to improving this, because this actually determines our Medicaid reimbursement rate as a state. The first was being able to educate providers on what this survey does. The second is making sure that they're completing it with accuracy. So I'm happy to provide more information around this, but we are very, very pleased to see the dramatic improvement just in 1 year, and believe that with all of the support that we're providing for our school systems, we will continue that ambitious improvement, but also ultimately see our Medicaid reimbursement rates increase, which means that we can expand the behavioral health and supports for our students.
Ms. Mitchell, I have a couple of questions on that. So first one, how much money are we talking about that we could potentially recover? And second one, what's the basis for the targets?
So the basis for the targets, I'll answer the last question first. So the basis for the targets are, as you can see from our prior state to current states, that improvement was pretty drastic. And that's because of the 2 kind of pronged approaches that I just mentioned. We provided professional development, and then we also just educated our providers on the purpose of the survey and how that directly correlates to the Medicaid reimbursement rate. So our targets are set based on knowing that we are just going to continue rolling that out, but we had a pretty, I would say, intense over the past 1 year push for educating, which is why you see that, and we want to continue that trend. So that's the basis for the target. I would say for, does that answer your question for the target?
Yeah, I got probably one other question in. Do we look at other states and see what's a best practice target in other states? Or even is it comparable? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question, and I would probably defer to the career and college readiness team on how this compares to other states, but we actually contracted with someone to come in and do a complete kind of study and put together a framework with us, for us, that was nationally, that included national targets, information, and data, and so looking at our current data as well as our framework, it is absolutely inclusive of the national trends. The dollar amount that schools would see at this point would be no less than at least 20 million, and that's only based on our most recent random moment time study, which is not something that I would say would be reliable at all. Because of the vast improvements that we're making with this. And I would say secondly, the number of students that are qualifying to receive the behavioral and mental health supports.
So how much are you ballparking that you save with your 3.2% and your 2.9% and your 3.6%? Do you have a ballpark number? How much do we save because of the efficiency?
I am not qualified to give you that number.
Okay.
But I'm happy to look into it and
Yeah, we can
bring
work
it
it
back.
offline, but I'd really like to know how much money we save because of the efficiency.
Absolutely.
You know, we want to share that, across the network, right?
And Mr.
Absolutely.
Morris, I'll just say that prior to our efforts in this, we conducted a survey of the individuals who were receiving the Moment in Time survey and asked them questions about what is this survey for. And it was very clear that most of the individuals filling out that survey did not understand what it was about. And so there have been intensive education efforts. And the plan is to survey those same Moment in Time individuals again later so that we can see the growth and knowledge regarding the importance of the survey and then make adjustments to our efforts to increase their knowledge. And so this has been a really important endeavor on a lot of people's parts, and we're eternally grateful to Sarah Broom for the efforts that she took to create a resource library for our schools, which quite frankly are some of the best in the country now, because we were doing this really poorly before, but now I'm pretty convinced that our efforts are going to make us a model across the country. We made the largest investment in behavioral and mental health services in our state's history, and that first $20 million, that's the estimate, is just a down payment that is going to only grow as we get better at training people to do this. And in fact, we may even be featured at the National Governors Association regarding best practices about how to do this and do it well.
Yeah, I think it's a great story. I'd just like to be able to quantify, so we can better share the details of the story. Now, we roll this out across the entire state, or are these pilot programs across the state, or?
Across the entire state.
Okay, thank you.
And moving on, our priority 3, our total investment largest is about $150 million. And we're going to look at academic recovery and acceleration, of course our literacy screeners, the math refresh, which is a new body of work, so we won't have any data yet. Then of course our quality curriculum assessments, special schools, and our statewide data system. So again, we'll show data for the work that we have it available for. First, our academic recovery and acceleration. This was brought to you all, I believe, earlier this year in June, and this looks at our increase in percentage of students who are most impacted by the COVID-19 scoring mastery and above on 2022 LEAP statewide assessments. So when we looked at this subset of students, we kind of defined this most impacted student group as those who are economically disadvantaged, Black students, students with disabilities, or English learners. That was about 78% of our students in 2021. So when we looked at that, 32% of those students were scoring mastery and above on ELA, 19% on math, and then 26% on ELA and math. when we look at 2022, we see growth across the board. So that's 36% scoring mastery and above in ELA, 22% in math, and 28% in both ELA and math. So as you can see, we've set some targets, but these targets, I believe, should be further studied, further analyzed to make sure that not only are they ambitious, but attainable. But we are excited to see the progress of the students, but we know that's a direct correlation to the investments that our school systems have made. Related to this is our school systems that have used ESSER funds to provide expanded learning opportunities to students, particularly those most impacted. And so based on the academic recovery and acceleration plans that our systems submitted last September, we are looking at 4 areas where they have made notable commitments and investments of their dollars for 4 areas: high dosage tutoring, literacy interventions, summer learning, and before and after school programs. So what we see from the 21-22 plans that were submitted was 73% committed to high dosage tutoring, 85% committed to literacy interventions and extensions, 64% summer learning programs, and then 84% before and after school programs. Again, this is their commitment of their dollars. It does not reflect any school systems that may provide these opportunities with a different source of funds. We're actively collecting the 2022-2023 comeback or academic recovery and acceleration plans as we speak. So we'll provide that update in January. Additionally, we have our Accelerating Schools. This is a very specific initiative to support the schools that from 2019 to 2021 showed either one of 2 kind of identifying criteria. That was the top 50 schools for the greatest decrease in students scoring mastery and above, or the greatest increase in the students scoring unsatisfactory. We provided these schools with additional funds. I'm actually going to detail that out in modeling how we're analyzing academic return on investment a little bit later. But overall, what we're seeing is a dramatic increase in these schools. So quickly on the percent mastery and above in ELA, from 19 to 21, only 3%, that's only 3 schools out of the 95 who received this allocation, improved. From 21 to 22, 68% improved. From 2019 to 2021, only 3% decreased the percent of students scoring unsat in ELA. From 21 to 22, that increased to 53%. And then what you see on the 2 lines below are the same data measurements, but for math. So we went from 0 schools improving their student performance for students from 2019 to 2021, and then 76% of these schools improving student performance from 21 to 22.
So this is everyone, this is worth everyone looking up for a moment.
This is dramatic.
Yeah, this is a set of schools that we invested in both time and resource. So we worked as a team to identify the schools with the greatest increase of students scoring at the unsatisfactory level in math and ELA. So we identified 50 schools across the state, and then 50 with the greatest decrease in mastery. We took time to identify those schools a couple of years, or last testing cycle before this one. And then we provided support and we provided additional resource directly to these schools. And so what you see here is, this is when a plan comes together.
So what do we attribute success to?
Mr.
Where's the
Morris,
model? What are we copying paste?
I'm really glad you asked that question because per your request on just being able to model out how are we measuring our academic return on investment, I'm going to go through this particular initiative towards the end to say these are the things that we're seeing where they've invested and what we can attribute to this improvement.
Good answer.
Thank you. Literacy, this is something that you are all familiar with. I believe The NAEP scores are coming out soon, they're not here yet, but what we've done with the percentage for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students scoring mastery and above is look actually at cohorts of students and not just the grade band year over year. So we see our 3rd grade students who were 2nd graders last year, or 2 years ago, 38% scored mastery and above. So we set some targets of about 2% increase for each of those cohorts. And that's consistent with what we've seen over the past 3 to 4 years. I will also say that we've made significant investments in literacy in particular. So I do believe that the team will be looking at these targets to determine whether or not they are not just attainable, but if they are ambitious enough, given the amount of investments that we're making, not just in literacy screeners and literacy curriculum and materials, but also the professional learning of our educators. So as you can see across, we're looking at our 4th grade students who were 3rd graders last year, or the previous year, 39% were mastery and above. Last year, 44%, so a target was set for 46% as 5th graders. And then, of course, our 5th graders last year scored 40% as 4th graders, which Dr. Brumley has his Post-it note that says this is the group he's most concerned about. And we see that they were 42% as 4th graders, so moving them back to at least where they were previously, but also I believe with our investments that we can increase these targets. For our quality assessments, it is imperative that we are providing a not just quality assessment tool, but ensuring a good number of our kids are actually taking that so that we can know how our students are doing. Full participation in it is important to ensure that we're delivering on those high expectations. As part of ESSA, the states are required to have a 95% participation rate. So what you see here is, of course, we exceeded that last year at 98%, the year before with 97.5%. And although the target is below even what we've achieved, I would say, thinking about it like a flood level of a river, there is a minimum. And we need to have, the red lights flashing if we are getting anywhere close to that 95%. And it's not that we're settling for the minimum of the federal requirement, but that we know that is a threshold that depends on so much, including funding and various other resources for our students. So next is our investments in high quality teaching and learning. We have educator development, certification, and literacy professional learning. For educator development, we are excited to bring to you all a couple quick updates on this initiative. So first is the aspiring principals that have graduated from the cohort. Last year we had 22. This year we have 50 in the program, and then our target is to maintain 50 in the program. But ultimately we want to make sure that those individuals who are going through that program matriculate into school leadership positions. So this year, from the cohort that graduated last year, we had 3 individuals of those 22 who are serving right now in school leadership positions. So that's 14%. We're really proud of that. This is a typo. Talked with the program office earlier, and for next year, the goal is actually 33%, and then in the years after is 80%. But that is something that we want to see have impact in our schools, where the individuals going through this are actually getting into those leadership positions. Next is increasing the capacity of our HR directors and departments. And so we have 28 school systems who've participated in the HR fellowship. We had an additional number participate this year, bringing the total to 40. Our goal is that a total of 50 would have gone through this fellowship by the end of next year. Then we have the number of certified mentors, as you can see those numbers there. And
This
then,
is Ms. Mitchell, this is a
Yes.
number that I know Dr. Buck is especially concerned about.
Dr. Bovee.
Who is standing?
Do you have any questions about the number that you care about so much? This one? Just. Thank you. And our pre-educator pathway, as you can see, we're increasing the number of the school systems that offer our pre-educator pathway. Last, but certainly not least, the excitement of everyone is our system structures and partnerships. So we're going to be looking at two areas, the school improvement, school system planning, and then of course our recruitment and retention, new work that's launching. So our priorities-based planning and budgeting, we have the number of approved LEA academic recovery and acceleration plans are for the systems that are utilizing their stimulus dollars. That number is in fact not 15, it is 189, which is 99%. So, error. And of course, our school systems have just submitted their ones for 22-23. And then the number of LEAs that are participating or have completed the Strong School Systems pilot. So far, 15 have completed it. This year, we have an additional 12. So by the end of this year, 27 would have completed it, and we hope to add an additional 30 for a total of 57. In all of this is $4 billion. It's a lot of money, once in a lifetime. So I was challenged by Mr. Morris to really ask and dig into how are we spending our money? How do we know it's working? And so I am going to kind of walk through a model of how our program offices are really analyzing the academic return on investment for these dollars. So one of the initiatives that I mentioned earlier, and Dr. Brumley was kind of paused us to stop and celebrate the success, was the Accelerating Schools initiative. So this particular initiative provided additional ESSER funds to schools that met one of two criteria. They met both, they got additional funds. So as Dr. Brumley stated, they were either the top 50 schools that had the greatest decrease in students scoring mastery and above, or the greatest increase in students scoring unsatisfactory from 19 to 21. The receiving schools could spend their funds in 3 areas: attendance, well-being, academic recovery and acceleration, or professional learning. 95 individual schools received an allocation of $50,000 if they met one of those criteria, and this was an allocation that came before you all in October of 2021. When we look at those 95 schools that received additional funding, and we look at their results from 21 to 22, we see that 68% of schools increased the percentage scoring mastery in ELA. 9 schools had no significant change, but 65 schools improved that percentage scoring mastery. Of those, 40 schools decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory. 50 schools decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory with an average percent decrease of 7%. For math, 5 schools had no significant change, but 72 schools improved the percentage of students scoring mastery and above on math. Of those, 64 decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory. 81 schools decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory on math with an average percent decrease of 10%. Overall, 57 schools increased the percentage of students scoring mastery and above in both ELA and math from 21 to 22. 46 schools decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory in both ELA and math from 21 to 22. And 32 schools increased the percentage scoring mastery and above in both ELA and math, and decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory in both ELA and math.
Ms. Mitchell, can you give me the three items, the three focus areas again? I got attendance, well-being, what were the other two?
Yeah, I want to speak to that. So essentially, you're familiar, because I talk about it all the time, the comeback plans require for the systems. You know, every system had to write a comeback plan around attendance and well-being, recovery and acceleration, and professional learning for the teachers. And so that's what we required every system in the state to write a plan around last year, and that's where we have our comeback website, comeback.com, we've got the financial dashboard, all that. So these particular schools that we identified, we pushed out $50,000 to each of them, and asked them to use it to do those three things, or part of those three things, or something involved with those three things. So it was almost as if they're like a mini version of what we asked the systems to do.
So what's our learnings from that we can share with the rest of the state? What are these specific investments in attendance, well-being, recovery, acceleration, and professional development? I mean, the results are fantastic, right? So do we have a point yet where we've got any specific learnings, best practices that we can share with the rest of the state and look forward to similar results?
Mr. Morris, I am so enthusiastic that you asked that question, because the answer is yes. And I have a few examples that I would like to share. Actually, one of our accelerating schools, Boley Elementary, met the comeback criteria for demonstrating exceptional growth from 2019 to 22, which means that they exceeded their performance pre-pandemic. Caddo invested in providing after-school and summer learning opportunities for their students. In math, 7 of 8 of the schools that were included in accelerating schools decreased the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory. For ELA, 3% of 3 of their schools increased the percentage of students scoring mastery and above. For Jefferson, they invested in an intervention teacher to provide high-dosage tutoring at one campus and saw a 2% decrease in students scoring unsatisfactory and an 11% increase in students scoring mastery and above in ELA. They provided mental and behavioral supports at one campus to increase attendance and engagement. That resulted in improvement in both decreasing unsatisfactory and increasing mastery. They provided TAP master teachers to provide professional learning and coaching for teachers at 3 schools. All 3 schools saw an increase in the percentage of students scoring mastery in ELA and a decrease in the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory in math. They also contracted with a school leadership center to provide discovery walkthroughs, data analysis, and coaching to 7 accelerating schools that all showed improvement. Rapides invested in high-quality curriculum and professional development, and they saw improvement in both of their schools. Tangipahoa invested in high-quality curriculum and professional development, and they also saw both of their campuses increase in the percentage of students scoring mastery and above, and decrease in the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory. Webster invested in summer learning opportunities for their students. All 3 campuses saw a significant decrease in the percentage of students scoring unsatisfactory, increase in students scoring mastery and above, and likewise, they all saw this for not just math, but also ELA. So overall, the investment areas consistently that we saw corresponding with improvement, academic improvement, were summer learning, investment in high quality curriculum and professional development, before and after school learning, high dosage tutoring. So we believe as our research continues that we will be able to provide the state and our school systems with some of that information to help them guide the remaining years of their ESSER investments.
That's fantastic, great story. Thank you for sharing. Just one more thing, on slide 23, similar question, the reference to the summer school program. So we've heard a lot of good things about schools investing in these summer school programs and so forth. And I don't want to advocate any more testing, but do we have any way to put some sort of value, quantitative value on these summer school programs, and if there are any that are working better than others? Do we have any feedback on any of that we can share?
That's, I think, something that we can certainly look into as we are enhancing our analysis and reporting of all of these dollars and investments.
One really clear example to me, though, is the recognition we did in Louisiana what month? At the end of last month, and the beginning of this month, and we'll recognize them tomorrow. But despite the pandemic and despite the hurricane, Louisiana was in the top, I'm going to say 3 systems across the state for growth and proficiency year over year. And I don't know of a parish hit more significantly than Louisiana in terms of Hurricane Ida. But one of the things we know about Louisiana is in the summer before that storm, they had a very robust summer program. And they did everything we asked them to do and more with community partners, incorporating recreation, pulling in high dose tutoring. So although they had the hurricane, they had essentially banked a month of instruction with kids before the school year even began. So as I've been in talks with Superintendent Martin down there, I told him, I said, look, I think part of the reason you guys were able to see the growth in proficiency despite the storm is because of the remarkable summer program that you all have.
Just one other thought. You guys, does the state keep a list of, I know you have approved vendors, you have preferred vendors. So like, in a case like this, you could identify high performers, tutoring consultants or whatever, that, deliver the best results. You guys track that and create some kind of preferred vendor list for tutoring, things like that? Is that something you consider or something that's in place?
The state definitely has standard processes for developing vendor guides based on a set of criteria. We don't right now have, I would say, like the vendors with the star next to them, preferred vendors, right? Because some of the analysis that we're just now seeing is brand new. I do believe that our ability to report on the academic growth and measuring that against vendors who have been supporting those school systems would just be, actually we're getting into it, with a correlating information that we would provide to our stakeholders so that they can see that information for themselves. But we do have a vetting process for our vendor guides, but not necessarily that second step of the vendors with the star.
But maybe that's something I consider going forward, if you see significant results by specific vendors.
I think that does put us in a bit of an odd situation as a state agency in our ability to navigate relationships across vendors and what role we might play. So I'm happy to have more conversation with our team and even with Joan around what is possible with that. But I certainly don't want to commit to something like that right now.
I'm not gonna spend a lot of time like totally nerding out on all y'all with policy evaluation stuff, because while I think that these results are really exciting, but I'm also worried about the difficulty of disentangling the effects of the additional money that they were given and the original ESSER money that they were given and how they chose to spend it. And so what would be really kind of confirmation that these schools were spending this money in really good ways that should inform our practice in the future would be matching them to schools with similar demographics and comparing this set of schools' results with the matched schools that look similar in characteristics but did not get that extra insertion of cash. So I would be happy to talk with you later about a way for us to really be able to say with confidence that this is a program and that works for these schools and we should think about emulating it.
Absolutely. Which I think is a great segue to the future reporting. I think 2 Bessie cycles ago, the presentation was given and there was a request to have a quote-unquote double click to really be able to dig into some of the initiatives, the objectives and priorities. and see multiple layers of that information. So we took that charge seriously, but also have a commitment to making sure that we are transparent with all of our funding and our commitment to making sure that our dollars that are invested really do have an impact from the classroom, or from our boardroom all the way down to the classroom. So with that, we have sought out and are excited to engage with a partner to really help us build a public reporting tool that is going to accomplish three things. First is to be able to, all of the priorities and indicators that we're putting together manually in this PowerPoint every quarter, to have those available on a publicly visible dashboard. That will include objectives and progress monitoring. The second component of that dashboard will be the critical goals. So our 6 critical goals with year-over-year data, as well as our target for 2025 and how we're progressing there. And then the third is our ESSER investments. So to the point that I think the last 2 comments were made, our ESSER investments, how are our LEAs investing these dollars? How has the state provided dollars to our LEAs? And then how can we overlay and see that with our student outcomes? So it's not necessarily drawing any conclusion, but simply providing the data in a way where the user can slice and dice it in a pretty easy manner to be able to see what is and isn't producing an increase in our student outcomes. So we're very excited about launching this work, or engaging with our partner, launching this work, and we hope to have a dashboard available to you all for the January BESI meeting at the very bare minimum with our ESSER investments. And that is the conclusion of the presentation today. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Board members, any objections? Motion carries. Next item, please.
You're returning to the regular order of business. Your consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 7.1, 7.2, and 8.1.
Mr. Rock and Dr. Davis, second. Thank you. Any questions, concerns, any objections? Motion carries. Next item, please.
On page 35, item 4.1, consideration of an update report regarding LEAs in non-compliance with the 70% instructional requirement for fiscal year 2020-2021. Recommendation is to receive.
Motion, Dr. Bovee. Second, Mr. Rock. Any objection? Motion, I'm sorry, report. No objection, motion carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
On page 70, item 5.5, consideration of LDE emergency contracts and cooperative endeavor agreements approved by the BESI president under interim authority. The recommendation is to ratify.
Motion, Mr. Rock, second, Ms. Ashley Ellis. Any questions, concerns? Report. Okay, good. No objection, motion carried. Thank you. Next item.
On page 77, item 5.6, consideration of LDE and RSD contracts greater than $50,000. The item was previously titled Consideration of LDE RSD Contracts of $50,000 and over. Recommendation is to approve the contracts and approve the revision to the standing agenda item title.
Motion, Mr. Rock, second. Any meeting?
I can. 5-6.
5-6. Dr. Bowden. Any questions, concerns? Yeah.
I need to note a recusal on item 5.6 for the LSU School of Social Work Grant Program and the LSU STEM micro-credentials.
Thank you. Dr. Bowden?
None on 5-6.
Okay.
Come back to me on 5-7.
I'll try to remember. Any objection? Motion carried. Next item, please.
On page 138, item 5.7, consideration of federal and state grants and allocations to LEAs, type 2 charters, type 5 charters, approved non-public schools, and community-based organizations, competitive and other. Recommendation is to approve.
Motion, Mr. Melvin, second. Ms. Dallas? Any recusals? Yes, Dr. Bo.
I need to be recused on item 5.7, early childhood lead agencies, child care management software initiative, LA4, and OLEO project.
Okay, whatever that means, right?
Right.
Dr. Davis?
I need to be recused from item 5.7, the Volunteers of America Greater Baton Rouge Early Childhood Lead Agencies, their child care management software initiative, and their OLEO project.
Anyone else? Dr. Bofi, do you want to know what that means?
Yeah, yes, please.
Can somebody help us?
Outdoor learning environment opportunities. The playground equipment.
Outdoor learning environment opportunity.
Very good, thank you. All right, any objection? Without any objection, motion carries. Next item, please.
On page 164, item 6.1, consideration of AG funding cycle activities, approval of AG statewide programs for fiscal year 2022-2023. Recommendation is to approve.
Motion, please, Mr. Rock, second, Ms. Alice. Ms. Alice. Any objection? Motion carried. Next item, please.
On page 183, item 8.2, consideration of legislative reports. Recommendation is to approve the student transfers report in response to RS 17, section 4035.1.
Motion, please. Mr. Mellorin, seconded. Mr. Rock. Any objection? No objection. Motion carried. Next item.
That completes your report.
Yay! We're done. Thank you, everyone. Great job. All your great work. Thank you, Dr. Hodge.